more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
To the September Conservation Commission meeting. All right, we're live on TV, everybody. We'll start with our introduction. We can start down at the end with Dawn and work our way this way.
Hi, Don Clement, alternate.
Allison Eberhardt.
Kyle Welch.
Andrew Koff, I'm the chair.
Sorry. Trevor Matera. Nick Campion.
Dave Short.
And I'm Krista Murphy, the Conservation and Sustainability Planner.
Yeah, and Kristen's mic is feeding back into the room.
That's not bad.
Okay.
It sounds different than.
It's not bothering me.
Okay, we'll forward John. Up next, do we have any public comment? Are you here for an agenda item? Okay. We'll move on to our action item, seeing there's no other public here. Our first item is the management of the Grisette-Mendez Conservation parcel with regards to the undersized railroad culvert and plans for water level management and no hunting posting. We have Brian Grisette here to present on this. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you once again. Nice to see you again. It's been, a year?
Has it been that long?
Yeah, it was. Anyway, I'm Brian Grisette. The agenda is kind of condensed. It's more expansive than that. It's more detail, and essentially it's part informative, some past history, which will make it easier to conceptualize what were the issues. There's three main issues that we're looking at. And I think it's easiest to start with referencing the map, which will help because we're talking about the Little River Scammon Brook ecosystem, which essentially runs from the school property and the conservation land behind it up above Linden Street, under the B&M Railroad, and then continues through Scammon Brook to the conservation land that we gifted last year. This is an exhibit from a lawsuit I filed in 2006 against the Pan Am Railway and this New Hampshire DES. The reason for that is in preparation for Amtrak way back when, the railroad had come through, upgraded the track and replaced ties, and then restructured the bridge, and they had dumped all the railroad ties into the wetlands, which are the blue areas, and all of these highlighted in yellow on this exhibit from back then showed where they were dumped into prime wetlands in this area, and then just standard wetlands in the other areas. This also goes all the way over to Powder Mill Road. That was the extent of the scope of my lawsuit. Fast and quick, essentially, I won. I got a court order. Judge ordered DES, who had taken 2 years and no enforcement action, to supervise the cleanup of the rivers in Scammon Brook and all of the wetlands. So that was the good news. Part of that was in the judge's orders that the railroad ties could be, for future maintenance, could be temporarily placed along the right-of-way for pickup within 6 months, but they could not be placed within 100 feet of a wetlands. So what we've done now is, this is the property. You'll notice I now have these pink sections. And what transpired since 2008 and that decision and the cleanup, around 2015, railroad came through. It did a minor replacement. And what ended up happening is they stacked the few that they had. They were not adjacent to the wetlands. They were in compliance with the order, but they let them sit there. But it wasn't a big issue. This combined with, but as a result of what happened in 2004 through 2006, what happened was the beaver population has been managed by the town of Exeter School District and the town from Court Street all the way up the Little River. That basically it was under control, it was properly managed. Then what happened when the railroad came in and dumped everything in, the beavers thought, that's great, we can use that for the basis for dams. So over a couple of years, the cleanup took place, the beaver population was brought back into control, and basically everything was fine. What happened in 2019, beginning in 2019, at the end of the year, they came through and they once again took out more ties. And this time, that was in, I should get the right date. Well, essentially what happened approximately 2.5 years ago, the railroad came back in to redo the line again. This time they did substantial. It was over the calculation for that same area. It was over 1,000 new railroad ties were placed. And when they did so, what they did was they stacked them for the first time in piles. It looked like they were going to haul them off because where the prime wetlands was in this one section, they did remove those and haul them off. The others still sat there, and so I waited. What ended up happening in the beginning of 2000, during that period of time, there was also another issue that came up, is the beavers. Around 2019, was informed that the town would no longer manage the Little River for beaver population. It was a new policy. It was going to be left natural. As a result, the beavers ended up coming in and coming through up Scammon Brook. They crossed here under this culvert, the original culvert, and they created a dam, the culvert. So over a period of years, the railroad was trying to deal with it. Simultaneously, they had to replace these timbers. And then what ended up happening in March of 21, I found that they had taken all those ties and they pushed them over the banks into the non-standard wetlands, or the standard wetlands, not the prime. So I was out there, saw them. They were also trying to deal with the plug culvert. I told them, get them out or else I'm going to call the DES again. They got them out in that section, but not in these locations. So where you see the pink, these are the locations where they did not deal with the ties. And so what has transpired is some of them there was one location was in violation right here at the Little River Bridge. They stacked the ties right next to the bridge, right at the adjacent. And what happened in December of 21 was that there were 3 kids out there. I was out there doing my normal walk, and there were some young children. And what they did was they took those ties and they rolled them down into the river. And so I was able to pull them to the banks, contacted Kristen, filed an email complaint with Dave Price at DES. There's a copy for everybody. Sorry for the red ink, my printer was acting up. And so then we had to fill out an official complaint. There was numerous emails going back and forth. Kristen, yours was included, where we added her signature to the complaint. Since that time, haven't heard anything from DES. But what has happened recently, or within the last, with everything going on, I believe it was June. I believe it was June, the railroad came in without a permit, and I went walking back and found that they had pulled the culvert, the old existing culvert, where they were having the beaver problem, and rather trying to deal with the beavers anymore, they replaced that culvert. They pulled it out without permits. They threw the old granite blocks into the wetlands. They took trees that they cut to remove. They threw those into the prime wetlands. And then they installed a undersized culvert at a 2.5-foot higher elevation, which has now changed the hydrology in this entire area because it backs it up. Just for reference, the 2008 exhibit over here on the Riverwoods property, it was notated they did the same thing without permit that was approximately 1998, if I remember correctly. So this is what you're dealing with. Now, as the new owners and the stewards for the property, you should be aware of those issues. And basically what I'm looking for on the railroad issue is to move forward and find out what NHDES is going to do about it. Initially, way back when, the state of New Hampshire didn't believe it had jurisdiction. because railroads are federally regulated. But I supplied them with the information of the National Transportation Safety Board, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to come tonight and explain it, is that the National Transportation Safety Board has ruled that railroads, although federally regulated, must comply with local land use, zoning, and conservation environmental law. So you do have the authority. And hopefully you'll move forward, because it is changing this ecosystem, and it's also affecting my property partially, but the entire trailer park, they've raised, by raising it, by changing the angle of slope, and by reducing it, it's changing the hydrology of the whole area going back to Riverwoods. So hopefully you'll look into it. I'd be glad to work with Kristen, answer any questions to get that resolved.
So can you explain what the culvert is the Skaman Brook?
No,
Culvert, or it's the tributary
it's the tributary that crosses
from the trailer park?
from the trailer park. At the end of this group, the prime wetlands is down here. The flow comes from Riverwoods all the way around through the trailer park into the prime wetlands, which is in this location.
Yeah.
And then where the culvert is, right in this location, it was a stone box culvert that was 3 feet wide. It was 4 feet tall. And what they've done is they've reduced it to a 3-foot diameter pipe, and they've raised the bottom of that up 2.5 feet. So now what you also have is surcharging. And it's also created a situation where it's created a permanent dam by raising, the lower end is raised to 2.5 feet. The other side appears, based upon the degree of angle, it's not level anymore. They've now installed it so it's on a pitch of approximately 10 degrees. So now you have surcharging, which is created on the outlet side. You have all of the gravels and everything, since they did not put a retaining wall back in, where there was originally a granite retaining wall. Now all that gravel has been going in, being surcharged when there's a rain, and then they're pushing it out, and have created a new damming effect with the silt gravels building up around it.
But it's now damming on the southeast side, because that's higher, you're saying, and then it's scouring on the northwest side,
Correct.
onto our property.
Yeah, on your property. And this tributary follows this little black line down and connects to Skaman Brook.
Right. And that's an unnamed tributary.
Correct.
To Skaman Brook.
Okay.
So this isn't related to, I'm not sure where Riverwoods, oh, I see, the Riverwoods is further up, but that's not related to this specific issue.
No, it's just the
They had a
Riverwoods.
similar, the rail goes right by Riverwoods too.
Right, and there's a culvert on the Riverwoods property for that wetlands,
Okay.
which they raised 2.5 feet, and it comes through, and this is the tributary that takes all of that watershed through the trailer park.
Right.
And then down through this culvert.
Okay.
Okay, so it's this
All right, I'm
water
seeing it here
body
on this
here.
map, because it's a little hard for me to see it on your map, but,
Yeah.
And the beavers could still dam.
Right, but through management, it would be an up and down situation, where right now it's a permanent dam. So there's never and so it's changing, that's why I was saying it's changing the hydrology. It's
Yeah.
impacting my property all the way over here. There is a partial contributing factor with the higher water table that's been created.
Just one question, and maybe Kristen, you can answer that better than we can. What does we mean when we say the town manage the beaver population?
So, in the past, Brian must have reached out to Public Works or whoever, and periodically beaver dams were taken out within what is adjacent to the Morissette property. The Conservation Commission has a policy that they opt to not manage beaver on conservation land and allow natural processes to continue. So I informed Public Works of that. They stopped managing that beaver dam, and Brian is expressing concerns.
So the town did not really have a management plan per se.
No.
Which is something they were doing in response to Mr. Grissett.
Correct.
So there was never really a management plan.
Well, I said what happened in 1998, I approached the town originally with the issue. The town, I had my attorney contact, it was the school district, but it was still owned at that time by the town. And so I believe it was the...
No,
when did-
1998.
What year was it that the school district?
It was in the 2000s. I don't know exactly when. It was school property. It was still SAU property.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It was SAU property, but the Exeter School District, that was before we did it. And so the town took responsibility for doing it because under the law, if you alter, like in these locations, that these orange spots, if under case law, if a party alters the terrain of its property and creates an attractive nuisance for beavers, they are now liable for the damage. And so the town chose to manage the population.
It's new to me.
Okay.
It's okay.
But anyway, that was the story behind it, and it was working fine. And then there was the change, as Kristen referenced, and they stopped doing it. And that's over the past 2-3 years has raised the water table to the point where now there's 3 feet of standing water in the middle of a drought in places which would be bare and cracked. This is such a broad floodplain level that between this property line and this location is 1 foot. You have another foot down to this location, and you have a total of 2 feet between here and I believe this location, and then it's basically flat. The first one that came in that started causing the problems were in the 2 locations, one here next to the Monarch Field, where the field house used to be, and the field house concrete block was dumped into the river, and the beavers came in. The second one was the walkway bridge, when they built the dike going across so they could make the footbridge. The parking lot, they encroached 170 feet on the southwest corner to build the lower parking lot. And then you get up to the Linden Street. This is the most recent one, and that's when this little river, when the Linden Street bridge or the culverts were taken out. What happened was the erosion protection measures and silt fencing was not removed, created a backup, and the beavers used that to create a dam. And that's causing approximately a 2-foot, there's a 2-foot dike here. Right now, though, the water level extends from here all the way up. It's one flat plane coming all the way up. So in regards to beaver management, I was going to do that later, but what I was going to ask is that it came to my attention from reading the minutes that it appears that the commission has changed its policy, that you authorized a beaver deceiver to be installed at conservation lands on the north side of town. And if that's the case, installing a beaver deceiver to preserve a walkway when there's property damage being caused as a result. So what I'm looking at, I'm hoping what you'll do now is officially adopt a policy similar to what GZA helped craft in conjunction with UNH as the Merrimack policy for beaver management and have a formal plan in place.
Well, first of all, before we do anything, we should take this under consideration, and it really should go to the select board, because any policy should be a town-wide policy, not just a conservation commission policy. that's just my feeling there, opinion from policies and, that we've done in the past.
Yeah, my thought on this, it's premature to make any decisions on this as it's an open, appears like it's an open case with DES, so we're not about to decide on a path tonight for the site, but I appreciate all the info.
I'm giving you info and I'm giving you action items for you to look into. Okay, and I'm hoping that you will agree, because I've tried to submit things that I believe are environmentally sound, but I'm not looking for an answer tonight, not at all.
Is the bottom of the culvert that was raised, is that higher than the dams that are in place right now, or lower?
Higher.
It is higher?
Yeah.
So even if the dams were to be removed, that's going to be a...
That would still be there.
That would still be a restriction.
Yeah.
So that has to be dealt with. That has to be dealt with also.
Double?
Dealt with?
Yes. Separate issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it is kind of a separate issue, but it also, it makes doing anything with the dams kind of moot if that's still going to be there.
Well, it's moot in the sense of, for the trailer park, and versus this side, it creates a different step.
Right.
Taking out the other dams will not change the hydrology on the southeast side of the railroad track, but it would restore the northwest side. You would still need to address the culvert to change that hydrology and have the culvert put back where it was supposed to be and properly sized, because it also, by downsizing it, you can hit potential flood.
But you've got no response whatsoever on that.
I have received no response from NHDES, and I just figured, since Kristen signed, it'd be, now that you own the land, we filed it under our name as the owners of the property, but we're not there, and so I thought it would be better, since it's your property now, for the benefit of the citizens, that it would be in your court.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll make one distinction here, which was, we put in the beaver deceiver on town property in the town forest. We don't actually, that's not our culvert, that's the railroad's culvert and the railroad's property. It may be affecting our property, but that's not, the culvert itself isn't we don't maintain that.
No.
And the same would be true for the Little River.
Yeah,
right?
the beavers and deceivers would be on the Little River.
On the Little River.
Yeah, the culvert is basically just having...
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
Oh, yeah,
we're not
definitely.
Negotiating beaver deceivers with railroads or...
Oh, yeah, no. They have a contractual...
And I guess my point for raising that is the town doesn't own the Little River,
We don't own necessarily all of the land adjacent to the Little River. Right, it backs up along other...
Right, and we're only talking about the points where the town did alterations. Everything else that the Linden Commons people or whoever, that's their responsibility. This is just what the commission has oversight over.
Well, the commission has oversight over wetland permits and management of conservation land,
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you're saying, you're talking about different entities besides the town in several of these instances, with the exception of the silt fence associated with the upgrade for the Linden Street culverts. Is that correct?
Several entities? I'm not sure.
So the only project that you mentioned that the town was the action agent on was the culvert upgrades on Linden Street.
No, the town...
Phillips Exeter was several of the initial ones you mentioned.
No. It's the high school. It's the old high school, junior high school property.
Yeah,
Right.
as you're coming down through
Right,
there.
understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's everything from between Linden Street and Court Street.
Understood.
Which is,
In my mind, I was separating town and school.
yeah, understood.
Yeah. So of the projects you mentioned, the only project that the town was involved in, school accepted, was the Linden Street culverts. And in your case, you said they left the silt fence. So is that correct? That's what,
I think, based on legal counsel, I think it was at the point in time when the work was done, it was transferred from the town of Exeter to the Exeter, from the Exeter School District, town of Exeter, it was transferred to the co-op. And the obligations go with the property, through the current owner.
yeah, I'm not tracking that, but, okay.
Yeah. I'm not asking for you to respond. I'm just, like I said, this is information.
Which co-op? I'm sorry, I just need to understand that I'm not
The
tracking
Exeter
that.
Regional Co-op.
The cooperative school district.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
So
oh,
the-
That
okay,
governs
sorry,
the high
thank you.
school and the middle
Okay.
school and SST.
Because there's also the co-op, the mobile home, or
No.
manufactured home co-op, which is
sorry.
right there as well.
No.
And then the culvert that's perched that the railroad replaced, can you just, that's this little tributary, which, this line is likely not accurate,
Yes.
but if this is Little River, you're talking about this water body down
Right
here.
here.
Okay.
Okay, and the prime wetlands is this area extending up to here, on that side. And then this is all the prime wetlands on this side.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it looks like,
Brian, have you raised this with the select board? Have you brought this to their attention?
No, I thought it'd be best to talk with the Conservation Commission since they manage the property. And it was, from what I heard from Highway, that it came from your department, the change in policy, so I'm not sure who. I assumed it was the Conservation Commission based upon our discussion when we were talking about the deed for the parcel itself.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion here? And what Mr. Grissett is relayed is that he has filed complaints or letters to DES about this. I would suggest that maybe we have staff here in Exeter contact DES to see if they can find out more about this from DES standpoint. Have they received these inquiries from Mr. Grissett, and what has their action been, follow-up, before we move any further? Because I don't know where DES stands on this, so I think it's important that we know that. Contact DES, so if we can,
Yeah.
that's the only way we can move forward here.
Yeah, I agree. The next step is to look into this a little further with DES. And Christine,
I would
you
request
were-
a copy of this letter. I remember us discussing the issue. I don't remember signing a letter, so I would request a copy of that if I could.
No, you didn't sign the application? You
Okay.
sent me the email, and on the form it says, who did you report it to the town,
Gotcha.
name of responsible
Thank you.
party? Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got the, what was submitted,
Okay.
if anybody wants to
Yeah.
review it, but it's all.
Oh, on their wetland complaint form.
Yes, on the
Yeah,
wetlands
okay.
complaint form. And basically, the description says, please refer to
Yep.
a series of emails and photographs and everything else that were submitted.
Okay. And you've been out to the site to see this?
I walked I did look at the railroad culvert, and I have seen the beaver dam. It actually appears to me like someone continues to breach it, but no.
so
Okay.
it looks like they did an assessment on that culvert in 2016, DES did. And you're right, it was a stone box culvert. So someone swapped that out with a perched pipe.
Yeah. No permits, no anything, no silt fence, nothing. And they just went in and did it because they were tired of dealing with the beavers. And so I believe the motivation to raise it and to perch it was so that they create a natural dam so that they didn't have to maintain it anymore. But that's not what the deeds say. Originally, when it was built, is as built. And the DES allows you to do emergency work as long as it's at original elevation.
Right.
Original, and if it's over 3 feet, you can't do an emergency. You have to get a permit. They knew that they had an issue for 18 months straight. And with the beavers there, they were not very successful dealing with them. And they just came in and blew it away. And like I said, there's stuff all over the place. There's no retaining wall, so that bank, it continues to erode.
Okay, why don't we look into it a little more and we'll
Yeah.
regroup on this issue.
Yeah, information only.
Okay.
Just, there was one other thing, when you're developing the policy, if it'd be possible to do something regarding where the Conservation Commission, one of the things I've noticed over the last 3 decades is that wherever there's a trail system, just like little kids like to throw stuff in, that's happening where your trail systems are hitting drainage ways or flowing water. And in fact, down in the school site, there's actually been very active, Public Works can verify that there have been people who are actually building their own little dams to raise water levels. And then back then, Public Works, we were taking them out because people were actually filling, which is illegal. So there might be something you want to put on your signs or on your website that says you may think you're improving the environment, but you're altering the ecology, and it's against state law.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, and then basically when it comes to the parcel itself, the issue that I wanted to discuss was trail system hunting. Came to my attention that, and I talked with Kristen about it, but there was work again today of expanding and creating the trail system on the back property. And my concerns are that's not in accordance with the terms of our deed and the gift. There's supposed to be signage, rules, all of that about use, actual location of where the trails are and where they're not, and what are allowed uses. There is no sign, and yet there now you have 2 access points from Brickyard Park. That's not in accordance with provisions of our deed. The second issue is that tomorrow, or in 2 days, it's September 15th, it's the opening of hunting season. Today's the 13th. And I discussed this with Kristen, and while we posted the property to no hunting, under New Hampshire state law, the only way to prohibit hunting is the owner must post, or else everybody has the right to hunt. It is a matter of our deed that the town did not want to have hunting back there, managed by the VFW for wildlife management, and so it was agreed that there'd be no hunting allowed at all. Next to the adjacent development, there's no hunting. So I brought up this issue. What's necessary is that the town needs to go out, and since it says Mendez Trust on it, you need to repost with the town's ownership. And I'm just a little concerned since it's 2 days away. Now, it's only bow season, but also there's not the map up that was going to say where you could hunt or not hunt. So by New Hampshire law, any citizen can go on that property, and that will be in violation of our deed. So asking that the property be posted in a timely fashion. And in regards to the trail system, until the rules are up, I'd like you to temporarily block it and say not open yet or coming soon or something. But the trail system, I do have a couple of other issues. One is that it's supposed to be 100 feet from the property lines. There's a spur there that goes within 10 feet going down the old farm road. From that point, it goes across, and whoever did the layout, there's crossing of wetlands, and at certain location where there's drainage channels, there's just cut pieces of pressure-treated wood just kind of thrown in there. And so, to, I guess, walk across, it's like an old beaver dam. And that's just going to get it plugged up. So I don't know if a plan assessment was done, got approval for, or notification was given to the state regarding trails within the wetlands. I know
I'm not aware of anybody
Yeah.
officially building trails out there.
Yeah, so.
What's going on?
So, from Brickyard, so if we step back a minute, when we acquired property there, the Grisette Mendez piece, and I can't see that, but the Grisette Mendez piece was separate on the deed from the Brickyard Park. Right? And so Parks and Rec, let me orient. So this is the Parks and Rec property. This is the Grisette Mendez piece, right? So Parks and Rec, their fields kind of go here-ish, I don't know.
Yeah, there-ish.
And so a while back, Bill and we did talk about it at a Conservation Commission meeting, but we talked about putting a trail out there so that we could have a loop that comes back to Brickyard Park. And so Bill and I were planning on doing it, and then a volunteer reached out to me. They offered to construct the trail. I walked the alignment with him. The wetland crossings were in the dry in all situations. I'm not sure where you're speaking of, where it crosses through a wetland.
Right here.
Okay. And then I'm also unclear, so the deed mentions 100 feet of your property. Your property is, are you referring to Wild Apple Lane? Because I
Right.
believe the deed was referencing your parcel.
No.
But we could double check, I can double check that, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it was on the entire parcel. There was the setback, which
Yeah.
was for trails and for hunting. It was
Yeah.
100-foot that went around. It was on the plan that was shown the board, and it came to, this is approximately the reconfigured Wild Apple Lane, or that the,
Well, there was that old farm road, that part,
that's not the issue.
okay.
Yeah, no, it's just across.
I don't know
the-
where you mean then.
But this wetlands, this right here, you can't see, it's very fine, but that's the upland farm road. Then you have wetland on both sides, you have two sets of culverts, they cross in between. And then you see the wetlands go this way where it crosses into our parcel. And right at this location, there was an old beaver dam on the property line. And that's what he used for his trail location.
Right, yep.
Right, and there
Okay,
were-
that I'm aware of, but
Right.
it's up on top of the beaver dam, out of the wet.
Right, but where the cut, in that one, the cuts,
So no notification to DES would be required in that situation. When you're up in the dry, you're not required to notify DES for a trail
that
notification.
beaver dam is 1 foot high. It's wetlands. It's got wetlands growth on it. It's not uplands.
Okay,
It's just,
okay. You Feel
my-
free
my
to
thing
file
is-
a notification to the state.
the concern regarding the way the planking, the boards were just thrown in there, and the location, it's just, and the fact that the signage isn't up yet, that's
Right,
just my
that I
concern.
understand, and that's my fault. I've been having the interpretive signage, taking the language that you provided,
Yeah.
and I really haven't moved it forward.
Yeah.
But, so I understand that.
Yeah, and-
I don't believe the deed limited our ability to put in a trail until the signage was in place, but I can review the language again.
Okay,
I understand that best practice, but I don't believe it's a deed violation.
okay. And I'm not claiming a deed violation. All
Right.
I'm saying is that the deed says what it says.
Yeah.
And the concern is that the property would be deeded conditionally on it being for use, that there would be the rules, the sign in
Yep,
place.
understood.
Quick question pertaining to hunting. I know back last spring or last winter, there was some pending legislation in the state that would prohibit banning of hunting on town-owned or state-owned land. Does anybody know where that,
It died.
it didn't go, okay, so, okay.
Right, and there was an exception, and it's that, and unless it was prohibited by the granting deed from,
Well, yeah, the law didn't go anywhere, so
Yeah, yeah.
the proposal didn't go anywhere.
right.
Okay.
So it looks like we need to work on our signage. That's the takeaway from the, that
And
includes
perhaps
a
add
trail
town of
sign
Exeter.
and a no hunting
Yeah.
posted sign.
Right, but the signs are up. His old signs are still there.
That says, the
But it's
posted.
the wrong name, so we just need to change the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no, right, this is not a crisis.
No, it's,
Right, so we will make that happen sooner than later. But there's no urgency, it seems like. I'll go check out that trail. I haven't been out there. I'm curious. And
well, the way the trail comes, it comes down right here are basically this section off Kingston Road are where the fields are. They had the original that was cut, 3 months ago? 4 months ago?
Well, on the old.
On the old farm road.
On the old farm road, yeah.
And then today, it appears that he's come and he's made a gradual trail across, and he's in the uplands. That's good. He comes down, it comes to this location, and then it crosses, once again, as I was saying, it goes across here. It then comes back up to this uplands.
right,
And so it goes in this, they kind of made a mistake, and they went off the property onto the abutters, and they did the railroad spur on the adjacent property. So that's the extent of the trail system so far, but before, I just wanted to speak up before it got out of hand.
or you're saying there's there's an old railroad spur that went over to the Brickyard.
Correct, you can see it actually on
Yeah.
Google Maps.
Huh. Okay, well, we'll look into that.
Yeah, and that's one of the.
And we have reached out to that property owner.
Yeah,
They're aware
And
of
once
this.
again, my concern regarding whether, if there's trail systems that are going to be close to drainage ways or brooks, that it be posted, because this has been used in the past, and it's been, meth dealers have been cooking meth out there. That was like 10 years ago. There's a campsite out here with tents. There's a lot of stuff going on. And so at least, feces all over the place. So that's basically it. And I'd be interested in regards to the beaver management plan, and the culvert to try to address this. I've got in 2 years, we have if you look on Google Maps, you'll see my ice rink, and the fence line on that, and those posts that outline the ice rink from 20 years ago are now 2 feet out of the ground, because the water table and the frost heave past 2 winters has pushed them up out of the ground. That's actual improvements, but getting it up until the drought, we were totally saturated. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Hopefully we get this resolved and we get it opened up for the people to go and enjoy it in the way it was intended. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
thank you, Brian. Okay, our next item
Take care,
is,
Brian.
You too.
Good luck, Eddie.
Thank you. She'll appreciate it.
our next item is the Lamprey River Advisory Committee. We have a presentation?
Oh, I'm not doing a presentation, but I'm going to show things on our new website. Hi, my name is Therese Thompson. I served for many years when I lived in Nottingham for 20 years on the Lamprey River Advisory Committee. Then I had to move again, had to sell my house, and I had to move 3 times in the last 4 years. And I now live in Raymond, and I knew we needed to have a member from the town of Raymond, because our member from Raymond retired. And of course, the Board of Selectmen was excited that someone wanted to be back on the board. And I did not get any courses to teach at the community college this year again. They're giving my courses to full-time faculty. I'm an adjunct. So I told the Lamprey River Advisory Committee that I'm going to go to the 5 towns that we don't have members right now, and your town is one of them. So we have 14 towns in the watershed of the Lamprey River watershed. So before I came here, I decided to look at your website, and I was very impressed with what you guys have there. You have events, win a kayak, big tree scavenger hunt, nesting birds, and then you've got a sustainability advisory committee, and then you had beautiful pictures of nature. I was blown away. I just couldn't believe it. And then I looked at your August meeting minutes, and they had the word rain barrels, and that was great, because when I owned a home on Pawtuckaway Lake, I had rain barrels around my house too. So, the Lamprey River Advisory Committee, we can have up to 4 people from each town. I'm going to bring it up on the website again. Yes, the Lamprey River is not in Exeter, but you are in our watershed. So the Lamprey River Advisory Committee members said that they wanted me to go to the conservation commissions instead of the select boards, because the select board is the one that decides who's going to be in that town, that's going to be that rep. So I'm sorry to bug you guys. I don't know if you know it, but is it 23 miles of the Lamprey River was designated by the federal government as wild and scenic river. There is 226 national wild and scenic rivers in 40 states, and the Lamprey River is one of them. And I also wanted to share with you that there's 3 main reasons to participate in our committee. And that has to do with proposed development projects. That's on a committee I'm on. I'll show that you're on the website. Input for management plan, access to money for projects, and support management plan. So I sent to her, or sent to your website, the grants program. Lamprey River Advisory Committee Community Grants Program. So we have to review a lot of grants, and not only that, also from researchers at UNH, which is really cool, really nice. So the other thing I wanted to share with you is, so it was November 12th of 1996 is when the Lee, Durham, and Newmarket was designated as the wild and scenic river. So before I started coming to the towns, this is the 3rd town I've gone to out of the 5. I was shocked when I emailed the secretary and found out we don't get any funding from the state of New Hampshire. We only get funding from the federal government. Like, whoa, I didn't know that. So I only brought 2 of these. If you want more, I can get you more. Sorry. So these are our newest flyers. And you can see what portion of the Exeter is on the watershed of the Lamprey River. I didn't know how many members you're going to have here, so I only brought 2 for I got 10 for the 5 towns I'm going to. I'll share this to you too, because you're nearby. So you can see there's only a little bit of Exeter in the watershed, but it's still very important. So if you could get somebody in your town to serve on our Lamprey River Advisory Committee, we'd really appreciate it very much, because it also helps us get funding for our grants and everything else we do from the federal government. So we just opened up a new website recently, and this is it here on the screen.
Just to let people at home know, the part of Exeter that is in this watershed it's the northwestern part, right?
Exactly.
Piscasset.
Exactly.
It's a tributary to the Lamprey.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It shows, doesn't it show it on the map?
Right.
Yep. Absolutely. So this is our new website, and
yeah,
if you
right.
can find somebody in your town that's interested in,
got enough stuff
it's
going
called the lampreyriver.org website. To serve on the Lamprey River Advisory Committee for Exeter, and the very top it says FAQ. They should click on that. I don't have enough time to show everything on our website. It's amazing. Look at this. What is the best way to contact the LRAC? How do I join the LRAC? When and where does the LRAC meet? So we have our meetings in Lee at the Public Supply Office where the police department is. Best places to visit on the Lamprey River. There's just a ton of stuff. So let's go back to the home. What else did I want to hit? So click on the bottom. Now, before I do that, look at all these different sections we have. Documents and resources about LRAC, news about the river, recreation, fun for kids, education, outreach, and videos. And if you scroll down here, look at how many different things I can show you there too. So I'm going to show you the work groups first. Hello, where is it? There it is. So these are the different work groups we have. So you can see my name, Therese Thompson's on the project review. So the project department usually meets an hour before the meetings. So our meetings are on the third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. So if you're on the project review committee, you get there at 6 p.m. So we've got land protection here, we've got wild and ecology, recreation, history, and education outreach. We have many things that we do for the Lamprey River. The other thing I wanted to show you on the side, information documents. How come it's not showing it now? Interesting. That's all right, go back to the work groups. Information documents. So you can see you got all our newsletters, got our meeting minutes, our annual reports here. And I wanted to show you program members. So as you can see, we got only one person from the town of Barrington. We don't have anybody in Brentwood yet. I've already talked to them. Candia, L Hall. When COVID came out, we had meetings on Zoom, and he has never come back since then, and his membership expires in November this year. Deerfield, I'll be seeing them next month. We used to have members from Deerfield, so you can see we got 2 people from Durham, 1 from Epping, that's our chair. Don't have anybody, you guys, Exeter. Fremont, I talked to already. And the Lee, we've got 4. So we can have up to 4 members from the towns. Newfields, we don't have anybody yet. Newmarket, Northwood, we have 1, thank God. We haven't had one for quite a while. Peter White, after I had to move a year ago out of Nottingham, we finally got somebody to come in there, and there I am in Raymond. So, 20 years of experience, our history. There it is. So, we have done a lot. This is 64 pages long. About 1996 to 2016. You can look at this at your own time. You can see here there's the watershed again. And just like the map I showed you, that orange area over here, it's the yellow area, that's the part of the river that's part of the Wild and Scenic National designation. And look at all the things that we have in here, wildlife, ecology, so on and so forth. So, I thought I should be talking to the Board of Selectmen, but like I said, the committee members told me I should go see the Conservation Commission, because you guys really care about the environment like we do. And I hope you will try to encourage somebody in your town to be serving on the Lamprey, at least one person on the Lamprey River Advisory Committee. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, a couple.
Please.
If you don't mind me jumping ahead. So, I guess my first would be, what responsibilities does a member of the Lamprey River Advisory Committee actually hold if someone were to sign up?
We review so many projects, I can't even tell you. And we also do a lot of outsourcing on the different towns, like fixing trails or putting up new signs. Like when I moved to Raymond a year and 4 months ago, the signs down there were all destroyed. Some of them were on the ground. I was like, what? So we finally got that fixed up. But like I said, we've got all those subcommittees, so the person could be on one of those subcommittees or none of those subcommittees, whatever. And because I'm unemployed, I'm going to do more this year. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. And when you're looking for an Exeter representative, does that just include basically anyone that lives within Exeter's?
Yep, in the town of Exeter.
Okay.
Like I said, we can have 1 to 4. And I didn't know that when I was when I owned a home in Nottingham, that could have more than me. That was interesting. So the full-time job I had at Mount Ida College in Newton, Mass., they had me start teach on Tuesday nights, so I had to stop being a member of the Lamprey River Advisory Committee. So I was like, all right. But they closed in 2018, so I've been an adjunct professor. And you had a question over here, too?
Well, it wasn't a question, more of a comment. Up until a couple of years ago, we did have a member on the Lamprey, Todd Piskowicz. Todd, who was on the commission, also was a Lamprey member of the Lamprey River Advisory Committee. But I'm also on the Exeter Squamscott River Advisory Committee, and we're looking for more individuals from Exeter too. So, but we don't have anybody from Raymond on the Exeter River. So I'd like to make you a deal.
Get her to email me.
Maybe you could serve on, be the Raymond
Of course.
representative, and we'll find someone in Exeter.
When I owned a home in Nottingham, I was on another river committee. I can't remember which one it was. I was going to look it up before I came here, but I forgot on my computer. But I have a handout I was going to give to you with my email and the chair's email and the paid secretary's email and the website here. And, I guess I didn't print it out this morning, so I'll email it to you.
Great.
But no, the Lamprey River Advisory Committee has been a great committee. I know that we've worked with them before. I've attended some of their meetings in the years past, and it's kind of a model of the River Advisory Committee.
When I first got on, I asked them, why is only 23 miles of the river part of the wild and scenic? Why isn't the whole river? They didn't answer me. I ask questions that sometimes people don't want to hear. Any other questions? I thank you so very much, and please encourage someone in your town to join us. And then, once again, we've got all those grants that you guys could possibly apply for, too. And of course, like I said before, there's a lot of researchers also we're also involved in the National Park System, too. We have a member that's on, so that's really nice, too. All righty, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Good night. For the lesson.
Yeah.
Sorry, I only had 2 of those.
No, that's great. Thank you. Thanks.
I can get you more. I met with Fremont last night, and they want a whole bunch of them for their library, and I said, that's okay, we'll do that. Take care.
Yeah, we need to advertise all these openings, because we have openings too at our SRLAC too. So these are all things to think about.
Might be something we should bring up at River Study as well. There could be members of that committee interested in Lamprey.
Right, and they also probably need more folks there too, at the River Study.
Right.
or at least
Maybe.
member attendance from I know I was
I think
gonna go to
you
one, and
and
I
Trevor share the responsibility, and Trevor's coming.
haven't heard anything. I feel like I dropped off the list,
Yeah,
and I haven't.
One of us needed to be it, so I volunteered.
Okay,
Yeah, so I've been going, but
Oh, okay.
I haven't had a meeting in quite a number of months.
okay. That's a good update. All right. Now let's keep things moving here. Let's move into some committee reports and property management. I know there's a few items there. Do you want to lead that?
I'm sorry, yes, sure. So first on the list, we talked at the last meeting, I provided a report on the bird nesting and haying cycle out at Rains Farm, and just by way of reminder for the public or for anyone who's not aware, the Conservation Commission opted to have an agreement with the farmer to promote or to allow an early hay cycle with then a delayed later second cut. And so what that would do theoretically is, though there might be some impacts to early bobolink nesters or grassland bird nesters, the space in between is large enough that it would afford an opportunity for re-nesting. And so it meets the farmer's needs, which is higher quality food source, and it meets the management goals of Rains to be both agricultural and wildlife habitat. And so the first year it worked out great. This year conditions were unique. It was very dry, and so after the first cut, they did an early cut, which was fantastic. After the first cut, like I had done the prior year with Carlos, I continued to walk the property and monitor for bobolink. I didn't see re-nesting, and so we thought we'd bring this topic back for further discussion tonight. I will say, since that time, I was contacted by David O'Hearn, and I heard some more details than what he shared in the letter that I forwarded on, that to me was reassuring. And then I also, Kathy Norton stopped by, both of them advocating for sticking with this early cut with a gap and then a second later season cut. One thing that was encouraging to me that I wasn't previously aware was David O'Hearn. I knew he was working with the property owners. I have the names different from what he calls them, but the Harrington property, which is due south of Rains Farm, and then I call it the Callahan property just because that's the easement it was put under, but it has a different owner now, and that's directly south of that property. He has been working the fields. If you've probably seen it, he planted pumpkins and some other crops in the Harrington property. The Callahan property, which, you know, at the time of acquisition, I think was mowed weekly, if not more, by the property owner. You know, he would regularly mow that property. And now David has talked to them, and they are adopting a late season mowing, and David does the mowing, which is fantastic. And so it could be that, you know, maybe it was just me being narrowly focused on Rains property. It could be the re-nesting. They could have immediately re-nested on the adjacent properties. So, from my perspective, I don't know that a change in this agreement is warranted. I know that it was very challenging for the farmer to meet the later hay cycle that we talked about, and in some cases, I don't know. All of this is your call. I'm just here to present the information to you, and my advice would be to maybe give it a couple more years and see how it goes. There might be years where nesting is successful, and there might be years when it's not. But managing the property for both uses is kind of the goal.
Well, if you don't do it, you're never going to have a successful nesting year, right?
Right.
Yeah, so.
If you don't
have that gap.
Yes.
Then you're going to have zero.
Yes.
This way.
Well, so the prior policy was do not permit haying prior to, I think it's July 15th.
Right.
And so theoretically that could allow the early nesters to fledge.
Right.
Does anyone have any comments or questions, thoughts on this?
It's rather complex to try to come up with a policy and especially in the day of climate change. Climate change has such an impact on when you can, is there going to be hay? Is it a drought season? Is it too much rain? It's probably going to have an impact also on the migration of birds, songbirds. So, I think to try to get too fine on a policy probably isn't going to help. I think the policy that we have now, I would say just let it ride.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would also point out that in the deed, it very clearly states that agriculture is the focus of the Rains property. So, as long as we're keeping that in mind, I think that should be a priority number one. I also had a chance to talk with Kathy Rains, or Norton, she commented that she thought that she heard that the bobolinks did re-nest down the road. So
Yeah, I
there
think
is
David's
optimism and hope there.
Yeah.
But I think we would want to be respectful and mindful of their deed to the town.
Kristen, just a clarifying question about what you said with the farmer having difficulty meeting the later haying cycle, meaning the original plan with one haying, or with the second one of the two?
They still got 2 cuts sometimes, but the first cut wasn't until July 15th, and at that time, many years, the hay was basically useless to them. It really wasn't food.
So, I think this was clearly the message, but just confirming that this 2 early and late cycle worked very well for the farmer.
It did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It's still a compromise from his perspective, because ideally you're going to cut hay when it's prime.
Yeah, right.
Time of year that happens.
Right.
But this year the early cut worked out really well for him.
Great. Okay.
And it sounds like you're all in agreement to continue as is, but it's also important to maintain a good relationship, because we're required by deed to keep the property. It's not just for agriculture, but we're required to keep it in active agricultural state. And if we can't have the farmer continue to hay it, that's going to be a significant, our mowing expenses for much smaller parcels, it's going to be a significant expense for the town, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So we can just continue. I don't think we need a motion, anything, or do we?
Not changing anything.
Okay.
Check in next year.
Yeah, I think let's continue to collect evidence. Watch. Okay. And then there was also at Rains, there's the site prep for the contractor.
Yeah, so I have some tentative good news, I will say, just tentative, knock on wood. I think we might have a contractor who will be able to do the repairs for Rains Barn. Or I think we have a contractor who's interested in doing the repairs for Rains Barn. Right now, they are working with, they would need to work with a couple different subs for some small portions of the project, and so they're trying to get the dollar amounts identified, because as you know, costs from when we had Stephen Bedard out there, who set the budget that we then went to LCHIP and went to the town voters to seek funding for, those costs are significantly different from what costs will be today. And so before we know what the next steps are, I asked them to put some numbers together. And so that's what they have been out there doing. One thing that they did request was part of the budget was really understanding whether they're, if you remember in the very basement floor, the ceiling on the, west end of the barn was questionably, we questioned whether it was asbestos or not, and that would change the cost for mitigation. And so they did request if they could have that tested beforehand, put a solid proposal together. We do have funds available in contract services, so I'm seeking support tonight to expend those dollars. But in addition to that, In order to be sure that we're ready to go at the earliest possible point, I'd also like to get all of the veg around the barn cut not professionally, but cut officially back as far as like 4 feet or whatever, so scaffolding could be placed there at the end of the growing season. Right now, we rely on Public Works to do it, and that's a heavy work burden to them, so I did get an estimate of $350 for that work. So what I've included in your packet was a request for $910, which is what remains in the contract services budget, and that way we can be flexible. And so, depending on what the asbestos testing costs, we have the money approved, so I wouldn't have to wait until the following meeting to get approval. So in your packet, if you're willing, is a draft motion to expend up to $910 from contract services for those two.
I'll make that motion to authorize the expenditures of up to $910 from the contract services budget line for the asbestos testing and vegetation clearing around the barn perimeter.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, okay, the motion passes. Okay,
The next item, should I keep going?
sure.
The next
got
item was conservation land mowing. At the end of the season, as you know, we mow several different properties in town. One of them includes the Morissette property and I keep saying policy tonight, but it's really our like loose agreement. That's our plan, I guess, not necessarily policy. But the Conservation Commission and I worked with Cooperative Extension to develop a plan to encourage perennial pollinator plants on Morissette. And so they recommended mowing 1/3 of the field a year. And so if you want to continue with that, David O'Hearn did provide an estimate of $1575. That's same cost as the past, I think, 2 or 3 years. Or if you want that whole, I don't know if you've been out there, there is some woody growth out there, but when I walked it, it does seem like most of the woody vegetation, it's, there's rose and some small autumn olive and some other things. It seems like most of that is on the part. He hasn't yet done the 1/3 mowing, the one on the 1/3 of the property that has not yet been mowed for several years. So I think we'll address that by just focusing on 1/3 of the property.
Well, is he comfortable that a 30-year, he has the capability to stay ahead of the maturity of the brush that's coming up?
Yeah, he did not recommend otherwise, but that's a good question. I guess if...
He must be if he's...
Do you want to have the option of up to 1,700 just in case he's like, hey, I don't think this policy is working or this plan is working because the woody vegetation was too big and I'd need to come in heavier
Right.
next time?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
We can do that. We've done it 2 times.
Two
So we've done a
times, so-
1/3 and a 1/3, and now this is the final 1/3.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can double check with him, but I like that idea of doing the full thing if needed.
Yeah, his judgment's good,
Right.
so.
So I'd make a motion to authorize the expenditure of $1,700 from the roadside mowing budget line item for the field mowing on conservation lands.
Second.
Okay, that was seconded by Dave. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? None. Passes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Before we move on from mowing, the stone property on Powder Mill, it hasn't been mowed for a while,
Yes,
has it?
that's correct.
And the woody growth is really starting to get established there. If we don't have something done soon, we're going to lose that as a working field, I'm afraid. Is there any update on where we are with that?
So I've not walked the property this year, but this comes back to the beaver, the plan with beaver management. The person, I reached, Bruce White reached out to me last year. He said, I have someone who's interested in haying. Can you contact him? And I was like, great, that's fantastic, because the abutter was concerned. He raised those concerns that you just brought up. So they went out there and looked at the property, and it was too wet for them to hay. There wasn't enough dry land for them to take on the work of mowing it. And so, I don't know, I haven't walked it this year to know how wet or dry it is.
My assumption would be pretty dry, but
Yeah, I
again,
know.
I haven't walked it either, but just looking at it from the road, it needs a cut.
Okay.
Again, I know it's not. on the
Yeah, I don't
agenda,
know. I'm happy to walk it. And I'm happy to walk it, and I'm also happy to reach back out to that person and see if they'd give it another go this year. They did a pretty decent sized loop in there, and it was too wet.
So alternate, if that, yeah, I like that idea of going, just continuing to explore that. Could, a backup plan would be hiring somebody to mow. Yeah, we don't have that money.
No,
We haven't explored that money. Or do a sort of a perimeter mow just on where the woody vegetation is
it's all over,
all over.
from what I can see from the road again.
So it's not in a hay condition necessarily either.
Correct.
No, not right now. It would be useless as hay. It needs to be cut, not mowed.
Yeah.
So there could be potential, and I can, so up to this year included, I've been hesitant to have interns help with property monitoring. I just am not comfortable having students come in to the office, and it's not just me that feels that way. And so I could request, should it be still wet on a portion, maybe I could request the town manager to transfer the funds that we had budgeted for interns to be moved toward our roadside mowing, and perhaps we could contract that out. I can look into that and report back at the next meeting. So maybe with your permission, I can request that, should it seem like we need a contractor, so that by the time we come
Yeah,
back
'cause then
next month,
November,
we're ready
yeah.
to roll.
That's a good plan. Good
I
idea.
think that's a good plan
Okay.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah, those meadows are excellent resources for us. And that, yeah, it's hard to keep track of all this.
Okay.
Thanks for
Alright.
bringing that up, Don. Any other mowing? I did go through the White Meadow, that was looking good.
Oh, that, good.
Yeah, that the path has been mowed recently out
I think
at
it's
White.
Bill. I think Bill
Bill?
is mowing the perimeter of that.
Okay. He told me he was mowing too on the path out to Garrison Lane to get to that trail out
the-
there, and that's been good too, so go Bill.
Great.
So next is Holland Way.
So Holland Way, this is a new topic, I think, for this board. If you drive down Holland Way from the porous pavement parking lot for McFarland Ford that you saw the application for a few months ago, or quite a few months ago, I guess. From that point, for a half a mile, the sidewalk kind of bumps out, and there's a large grassy strip. And I happened to be talking to Greg, who was, saying how long it takes to mow that, and I was like, why do we mow it then? Can we just let it grow up? We attempted to just kind of let it go and see what would come up. And there was some decent diversity, but it was really pretty grassy. And so So I'm proposing to you, and I know it's not conservation land, but I'm proposing to you whether you would be supportive of using $700 from the town's delineated budget, not the conservation fund, but the town's allocated budget to purchase seeds and supplies. And so what that would do is, I've talked with Public Works and Parks and Rec, and together, between equipment borrowing from one to the other and labor borrowing, they would be able to do, I think it's they could till that strip 3 different times, 2 to 3 weeks apart, which is what's recommended to kill back the grass. And then we would seed it, and then do a cover crop of, I believe it's oats, because that's an annual plant. And so that won't come back in the spring. And so that would stabilize it for this winter, and then it could grow naturally next winter. Obviously, pollinator strips take a long time to really kind of get their footing. And we don't, I was against using chemicals, so I don't know. I'm hopeful that the rototilling would be enough to keep the grass that's there at bay, but it might be a mixed bag initially.
If
This is a wildflower mix, is that what you?
Yeah, so it's actually about $560 for a native wildflower mix. And I did compare, UNH Cooperative Extension has kind of a recommended species list, and I did compare this seed mix with that, and there's good alignment there. There are some differences, but all of the plants are regional, not necessarily native to New Hampshire. So there were some Pennsylvania, like 2 Pennsylvania species in there. But it's a pre-made mix. And then we would need some sand additive because the seed is very light. So in order to spread it, you need that. And then the oats mixed in as well in order to establish a cover and signage so that the public's aware what we're doing.
That would look great if we could do that, a wildflower, up down that area.
Yeah.
Get away from the lawn.
Yeah, the feel of that road is always, doesn't feel,
It's desolate.
it's off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Public Works was able to get, I think it was like 23 young trees, was that right? 23 young trees from Unitil, based on some trimming work as mitigation for some trimming work that they did out there.
Over-trimming.
And so that whole area has a bunch of trees. So I do see it as having a ton of potential. It's a great pass-through section. It is kind of weird now, but I think it has a lot of potential.
I never understood the fence.
Yeah. Fence.
That split rail fence
Oh,
or the rail
I think,
fence.
that's gone.
Is it gone?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
they pulled
rotted
that
away a
out.
few years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome problem solving.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Like taking something that's challenging and then turning it into value added.
Yeah.
I'm super supportive of it.
could we repurpose their frustrating mowing to the stone property? If we could get them
I
a
think it would be
pollinator
di-
garden?
I suspect it's brush hogging that we'll need at the stone property. I think it's going to be an
Could be.
intensive cut, but. That's the thought.
Short answer is maybe.
So I'll make a motion to authorize the expenditure of up to $700 from the Conservation Land Administration budget line item for seed and supplies to convert the median strip along Holland Way to pollinator habitat.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Any opposed? None. And that passes. Okay, any other property management items? Trails?
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I've talked about having a trail committee meeting, and then I think maybe October or November, I would like to organize one, just to talk about, an open forum to talk about all the trail keep that conversation going. Signage, the number, the density of trails, location of trails, those types of issues, trail maintenance issues. Continue that conversation from the spring. So I don't have a date in mind, but it would be not during one of our normal meetings. And it would be sort of an open public meeting. People could come in. Maybe we could do it hybrid so that people could just tune in that way, because it's a lot to come here. But I think we could probably get a lot of people Zoom.
But on the other hand, let's make people at least make a little bit of an effort to show up, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of, it's too easy to sit in the peanut gallery and throw darts. You know,
Okay. Yeah, we can.
I'm not a fan of hybrid meetings.
Of the hybrid.
I will push back on that a little bit. I'm a huge fan of hybrid meetings because I think they're challenging, I think, to administer once you figure it out, which I think the town has. It's an accessibility issue, right? It gives access to people who might otherwise not have it.
Yes and no. No, it's a valid point. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have anything else on it right now. It's just still an idea, but I have more determination to pick a date, and I'll be in touch with maybe Kyle and Dave. We can figure out a time that might work, and Kristen, where we can schedule something. And Allison, you can join on Zoom.
And I mean, timing.
I will. Now I will. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, totally.
Timing wise, that might be good if there's any end of season purchases that we need. That would be a good time to sort of.
Yeah, sort of a year in review, go through.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of awesome trail building projects, and things are looking good out there. No major agenda here, but I think it'd be a good forum. Okay, let's go on to outreach events. Unless there are other trail issues anyone wants to bring up.
Nope.
So I'll do a couple of them and then I'll lean on Kyle and maybe Nick could also help too. But after the last meeting when we were like, yeah, let's even bring speakers in, we have the money, why not? I found a woman who does a forest bathing program, which is a really incredible, I don't know if you've ever attended one, but it's like, almost like it's not a hike, it's like a slow walk through, and it doesn't have to be the woods, but in this case, I think Little River Conservation Area would be a perfect location to do it. It's just like a mindful exploration of nature. So you spend a lot of time like considering the smells around you, the sights, the textures, and all of that. And it's a really neat way to sort of slow down and connect with the land. And so I have an expenditure request. I did book it. I emailed Drew and I was like, what do you think? And so I booked her time. So we do have an event planned for October 1st from 9 to 10:30. Its space is limited to 12 people, and I think we have 4 signed up so far. So if it's something that you're interested in, please sign up. And that's just to keep the numbers low enough so that there's good interaction. So I have an expenditure request for $125 for that event.
I'll motion that we approve the $125 request from the Conservation Land Administration item.
Seconded.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None? Okay, that passes. Yeah, that's great. And I saw you put it out on Facebook, and if you need it, I wasn't exactly clear on what it was, and I don't know if your advertising explained what it was, but if we need to gin up a little more support, it might, explaining it, because it's not necessarily an intuitive concept, forest bathing. I think it's a really cool opportunity.
I'll reread it. I did have a woman call today to ask more details of like what it meant, so maybe there's
Yeah.
more text I can put to that to make it
Yeah, I
a little
liked your description of a
clearer.
sort of immersive, slow experience.
Yeah, I'm looking at the flyer now, and I had the same feeling. I didn't quite understand what I was, what I would be signing up
What
for.
did we,
Bring your scrub brush.
What are you gonna bring, soap and towels? I know Diana's bath, and
Yep.
all right, that's busy now.
been there.
Watch out. Okay, that's great. Thanks
That's
for
awesome.
organizing that, but be awesome. And then
And
the
then
Skywatch?
Yeah, one more October event, and that's Skywatch I was able to book for. This is an event we've been attempting. I think this might be our fourth attempt at trying to get this since back when Ginny was on the board. This was her thinking to get this here, and it just sounds amazing, but I was able to book them for October 21st at Rains Farm. And so the way it works is New Hampshire Astronomical Society is a bunch of members, and they're really into their telescopes, and they have personal equipment. And so all of their members will come out to the property, and they'll go out and set up in the field. And then they'll come and give a presentation in the barn for 30 minutes, starting at 7 o'clock. So from 7 to 7:30, we'll hear about what things we have potential to see. And then after that, we'll all go and explore through people's telescopes. That'll be focused on different sites in the sky. It is family friendly. They just ask that people are careful. If you've been to, they do it at UNH. If you've been there, they have like little step stools so kids can get up and see through the telescope. It's really cool. Weather dependent. So hope for a cloudless sky. And that they do that free of cost, so there's no expenditure request.
Is there limited spots?
No,
Okay, good.
no. I feel like we could kind of pack decent, just to hear about what they might be seeing, we could pack a decent number into the barn, and I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and then the other one is the kayak tour, so but that's in September, so we should probably have led with that, sorry. Do one of you guys want to talk about it?
Sure.
Kyle? Nick?
So yeah, I've talked a little bit with Tara Barker from the Recreation Department, and they recently invested in some kayaks, and they were thinking of ways that they could engage the community and utilize those kayaks. And so she reached out to me back in early August and asked if she thought that this would be something that the Conservation Commission would be interested in partnering with the Recreation Department on. I said yes, absolutely, but let's just make sure, let's check with Kristen and the committee. We worked on a couple of details. Kyle got involved, got some great optimism, and we came up with a flyer, and we have a date.
We
the
do.
25th. Is that right? 9:25?
Sunday, the 25th, from 10 to 11:45.
I think it's out there. I think it's already full.
Yeah, they had six
rented all their
kayaks.
kayaks.
Yeah, wow, excellent.
So if anybody else wants to come that has
Bring your
their
own.
own kayak, then they're certainly welcome.
She did wonder if we wanted to do a second follow-up activity for it. So I don't know if,
And it's on the Swampscott from
It's on- yep,
the
so you
town
lead
boat
from the-
launch with the cool kayak entry system we have. That's awesome.
Yeah, we thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about sea level rise or, whatever.
I think we kind of did a dry run of what it'll be during the Alewife Festival, which wasn't super well attended, so this will be an opportunity. But what we did there is we kind of went first up to, where the dam was, and, you can kind of talk a little bit about that. And then we went down to the 101 bridge and then back, and that's pretty much, I think, what the time will allow. It's a good distance for everybody, I think.
High tide.
Yeah, and it'll be
Yep.
high tide, so not so much mud.
yeah.
That's good.
It's exciting, yeah.
Sounds great.
It's cool. I think Tara posted it yesterday or the day before, so to have all of those spots filled so quickly was awesome.
Yeah.
So there's strong interest.
Yeah, maybe we should do another one.
Yeah.
I can't do that date, but maybe I would be happy to be involved in another one.
Like maybe early October or something?
Yeah, I would need to think about my schedule, look at that.
So you said there's a flyer online that lives somewhere?
Okay.
Yep, it's on, I put it on I think she posted it as a post, not as an event on Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
sure.
Facebook page, I pulled it into the town's website, under the Concom calendar,
Great.
which you get to by going to the Conservation Commission page, and then at the bottom, you see all the events of the Conservation Commission, under the new website format.
Awesome, thanks. Very cool.
Cool. And the mushroom walk?
Yeah, there's someone who's interested in leading something, they would charge. I just wasn't sure if there was interest. I'm having a hard time gauging, like.
Allison's our local mushroom expert.
Are you?
How do you know that? No, I'm a beginner mushroom forager, I would say.
You should lead one.
Oh,
I'm also a
take on that
beginner.
So have you heard of Dunk's mushrooms?
yeah.
So he leads these programs. and
Oh,
would be
yeah.
willing-
My only concern is if, like, how do we know what that person's knowledge is, right? But that's like, yeah, I think it sounds awesome.
Okay.
Where
And
would you go?
And it's not necessarily a foraging
Right.
Right.
The town, I mean,
hike,
lower,
as opposed to just a
wetter
mushroom.
woods are better, but.
a mushroom. Yeah, I mean, I would trust them. There's species that are pretty easy to identify and are safe.
yeah, and I've never done that before, so is it it seems like it's kind of spontaneous in when there's good times to go see mushrooms, so,
A lot of it depends upon the wet-dry cycle.
yeah.
You know, it's been at least over in the town forest, it's been a pretty quiet year for
Yeah, they're just coming up now.
So do you have thoughts for how would we plan a date if we don't?
I don't know.
I think I'm supportive of the idea. They can figure out a date.
Well, and the people from, I think they grow mushrooms and they also forage mushrooms, so they'll, they'll know how to plan, And like Drew was saying, there's, I don't know, maybe it's 15, 20 species that have no lookalikes that are worrisome, and so those are the ones you forage for, unless you're an expert,
So would you have thoughts for what property or?
Yeah, I don't,
So someone came to you to propose a town?
No, I just really think it's a neat idea, but I've never done it.
So you're
yeah.
okay.
And so I just reached out, and he's like, yeah, we do that kind of thing. But kind of like with the forest bathing, I had thought of a place and kind of knew in my head what to, where to go and what could accommodate parking and all of that. So
Yeah.
sort of.
I saw a lot of mushrooms, actually, a lot of boletus that are out in the town forest last weekend, down towards the culvert under 101.
yeah, and I was gonna say that
Those wetter areas may be a good. in the
wetter
town
areas and hardwoods.
Yeah.
So parking at Oakland's.
Yeah, you could park at Oakland's and go in. That might be a good way to do it.
It's tight park.
There was an explosion of mushrooms. Not
No, last fall was amazing.
was it last year?
With that wet July we had, I think after that.
There was one time where within a matter of 2 or 3 days, just multiple species just popped. I've got all kinds of pictures on my phone. They were gorgeous. The shapes, the colors. It was something.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll reach out and suggest Oakland's, and maybe if we have pre-registrations, we could plan to shuttle maybe from Henderson Swayze to Oakland's or something like that.
It's not that much farther if you go in from the circle and just kind of cut across to the culvert.
Oh, from Industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could go in there.
Okay.
And you don't necessarily need to go to the culvert. That was just where I went.
I've seen people over like on the Blue Trail.
Yeah.
Okay. That's definitely better
Then
parking.
you have like infinite parking, basically.
Yeah. All right, I'll reach out and see.
I'll sign up.
I would also note that, like, I think there's a big movement with, like, not just mushrooms, but foraging. So I don't know if the person that you've been in touch with would have that expertise, but I think that would be of interest too.
Other plant species.
Yeah, you're seeing it a lot.
Fiddlehead in the spring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Pete Steckler's wife, Erin, used to do a lot of foraging.
And you'd get a
Yeah.
little bit broader of maybe you don't find mushrooms, but you find fiddlehead. So
Yeah.
could be a little bit more encompassing.
Yeah.
Okay, I can ask.
Those
Maybe-
are obviously sort of seasonal spring things, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe would you entertain approving some funds in the event that we can get something pulled together, just so we don't have to do it after the fact like I did for the forest bathing? Maybe up to the same amount? What did she do, 125?
Yes.
150, or
Sure. I'll make that a motion.
which one, 125
Do we
or
think that's enough?
150?
150.
150?
Why not?
Oh, I had 175.
Not to exceed.
So then not to exceed what?
Yeah.
I mean, there's $568 left in that budget line item.
Yep.
Well,
It's going to be a long mushroom walk.
I mean, I would say 200 seems, like, anything above 200
Yes.
seems a bit
Donald's-
unreasonable. I feel like we could
Donald's
find
outbid.
another.
You sure that's enough now?
yeah.
That seems like a lot to pay someone to come to present, but I don't know.
So what is your recommendation?
200.
Yes.
So I would make the motion to authorize the expenditure up to $200 for a mushroom/foraging event.
Final answer.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Okay. And then any other? There's a fall and winter collaboration with Parks and Rec.
Yeah, so they are looking to have regular events with the Conservation Commission, just like, we had done in prior years. So I guess I hate to constantly make Kyle do it. Do it all. But if others are interested in leading too, great. Maybe we could get a list of names of people who might be interested and come up with collaborative activities for the fall and early winter, I think she said. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I snowshoe a lot, like in Henderson Swayze, and I wouldn't mind if people wanted to join, but the problem with there is hard to plan. Like a lot of times it's kind of like you have a two-day window when you're like, oh, this is going to be a good time to go. Like the temperature, the snow will be good. So it would have to kind of be last minute, I think, to really be effective. But if there was like even just posting on the conservation Facebook page, or just a way to get the news out to people that might be interested. Like I love going in the late afternoon, like right around sunset, and it's a great time to be out there.
Yeah.
Sounds lovely.
And we don't necessarily have to lead all these events as committee members. Like if we know somebody who might be a good trail, might be interested in leading a hike or some other event, they could also do that, right? There's nothing stopping us from delegating some of our events, outreach events to other people. So I don't know, maybe think about that too. If we don't have the time or resources to do all these outreach events. I think it's great to bring in the forest bathing and other people here to help carry the load, because there is a real need for outreach events. And I don't think there's a lot of busy folks here. So that's my thought for the moment.
All right.
All right, so I guess we'll keep working on that one. The minutes, should we go to minutes? A few more items before we wrap up here. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes?
I just had one minor global change to change Smith Page to PAGE. It's in there, PAIGE somewhere.
Okay, I'll motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Did you just make that motion, or are you asking for it?
I made the motion.
Oh, second. Sorry.
Sorry. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, we've approved the minutes. Do we have any other correspondence?
I didn't bring a copy of it, but we got email notification that Rose Farm is preparing. They have a pre-construction meeting September 20th, I believe it is, and they have all of their permits in place so they can start the remediation efforts any day now, even prior to the pre-construction meeting, because the town is not involved in that. And I did hear that stop me if I talked about this at the last meeting. Charter Street has, no, I didn't.
No, you told me about it.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
that's what it was. Charter Street has started their kind of delicate work of cleaning up the prime wetland, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah, good stuff. That was it.
Great, yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious to see some, say, photos or something from the before and after there. And then you have some other business from some of the other committees?
I do. I just wanted to call your attention to three different outreach opportunities and through the planning department. One is RPC reached out to us with the potential for offering technical assistance for floodplain and flood advisory zoning areas. So basically what this would do is look at our current flood regulations, and right now we require 1 foot of freeboard above the base flood elevation, and so this would consider requiring 2 feet of freeboard within our special flood hazard areas and some other changes. And then modeling.
What's the one that, what would require?
So new construction or substantial redevelopment, they would need to elevate the
Ground surface?
And I think it includes basement if there's mechanical in there. No, it's with or without mechanical, sorry. The lowest level needs to be currently 1 foot above the base flood elevation. And so this would elevate it 2 foot above, which would accommodate the 2040, I think, sea level rise scenarios. The anticipated elevation gain for 2040. Right? Where's my sea level rise, folks? Yes, is that right? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's 2040. And then modeling after what Durham had done, they also expanded, they looked at the sea level rise maps and established an area that's advisory to follow the special flood hazard area requirements out to, the footprint of what is predicted to be inundated under a sea level rise scenario. And so the technical assistance would involve looking at our regulations, doing some public outreach, having some committee support to develop language, review language, and then present something possibly to March 2023 town meeting. So it's sort of fast tracked, but they kind of need to look through the ordinance to see how quickly they can pull that together. It seems pretty straightforward at this point. So I've sent a request to the town manager for support, for bringing this to the select board for support in moving forward with it. So it's kind of exciting, I think. It's a good move. And I would love representatives from this board to help us in reviewing language or possibly the outreach side of it. So that's one of them. So if you're interested, let me know. I'll go fast through these, or you guys are all looking at me so eagerly like you're... Dave received a Invest New Hampshire grant, and so he is working on a dramatic rezoning for the town of Exeter. And so what this would do basically is look at our zoning ordinances, and if you look at our zoning, our how many zones we have an astronomical number of zones. This rezoning would dramatically reduce it and basically foster and encourage and incentivize development adjacent to infrastructure. So where we already have water, where we already have sewer, and de-incentivize development outside of those areas. So I think that's something the board would be interested in, and that's, he did receive $45,000 to cover the cost of a consultant, and I can't remember the consultant he's working with. And
there's a bike pedestrian master plan?
Yep, and he is also working with RPC on a bike pedestrian master plan. So that was something that that they're in the early stages of developing it. And I think we talked about that last time, but not, yeah.
And sorry, with the zoning, what does that process actually look like? Is there actually a public facing?
Yeah, so you mean what would the process be to adopt it?
I guess the entire thing, yeah, working with the consultant.
Yeah, so I don't know, they're still drafting language, so I don't know what that would look like, but he's working with the Master Plan Oversight Committee to initially develop a scope of work, and then the end product would be a proposed revision to our zoning ordinance that would go before the voters in 2023, March of 2023. So the steps to get there would be, it would have to be recommended, like any zoning amendment, it would have several public hearings at the planning board, and then from the planning board, they would have to recommend it to be on the on town warrant, and then obviously we need outreach to the voters, and then we'll see how things go in March when the town votes.
Great.
Yeah. And then I just thought I'd mention a couple different things from the sustainability and energy, and I'm hoping to kind of repeat things from Concom to their boards just to keep communication open. At the last Sustainability Advisory Committee, I've been working on a single-use plastics policy that we modeled after Portsmouth. We tweaked the language. I did a survey to town staff and to town permittees, and that initiated some modifications to the language. I presented those revisions to them last week, Monday. And they recommend we move it forward to the select board. So in early October, I'll present those changes to the select board, and obviously invite the public out to speak. Because it's the way it's crafted, it would be a town ordinance, not a zoning ordinance. That's something that's adopted by the select board, and it requires 3 public readings. So if that's a policy that you support or don't support, keep...
What is the proposal?
So the proposal is to, so the town only has authority to manage single-use plastics on town property. So what this would do would be limit the use of single-use plastics, plastic bags, and styrofoam on town property or town permitted events. So it would impact things like and there has certainly been some pushback so far on it, but...
like the festivals?
So, yeah, so the Beer and Chili Festival, for example, or the food trucks, those would be impacted. Parks and Rec with their concession stand would be impacted. So we think that we've done some tweaks to the language to accommodate what we could So there's exemptions for fire and safety because they use water bottles when they go, for first responder incidents, and an exemption for social service, human service nonprofits such as Meals on Wheels, with a goal to work with them directly to try to encourage the phasing out of some of those.
So is that a draft language, is that available for review now?
It is, yep.
Is it anywhere on the website? Or?
Yep. So the quickest way to get to it would be, because there's been some revisions, the quickest way to review that would be in the packet for the Sustainability Advisory Committee's last meeting, which was Monday.
That's Monday, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is now you're full-time. You have a lot on your plate.
It makes for longer meetings. I think maybe in the future I'll just put it all in writing, and then if you have questions, we can talk about it. I think that makes more sense. Energy Committee, we received our first payment for HydroNet metering, and so I think we talked about that a few meetings ago, but basically the town gets credits because we collaborate for the amount of fossil fuels we use, because we collaborate with a hydro power plant. It's not a carbon offset or anything like that. It's basically just they receive credits and then dole their credits out to communities that sign up through HydroNet metering. It was $400 or something like that, but it's something that hopefully over time might go into a budget to fund sustainable actions. The Energy Committee is having their 5th annual electric vehicle showcase, September 25th from 9 to 12, so go to that first and then head over to the kayak event, and that's it. Yeah.
All right. So our next meeting is in the 11th of October, and you said there was an issue with the location?
Yes, so next meeting we'll have to meet, I recommend we meet at the town hall. I know acoustically it's a little bit more challenging, but I think they set a meeting room up over there during COVID that maybe we can use, so it'll be better than just being in the wide open town hall. So select board will be here, a smaller committee will be downstairs, and I think because we have sometimes public speaking, it made sense to move us to town hall.
Okay. All right, so we'll obviously send a reminder out about that. Otherwise, I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.